Hello,
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. So could you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Barkha Saxena. I'm currently Chief Data Officer at Poshmark, which is the largest social commerce platform. I manage our data team, which goes across multiple verticals, and my team does a lot of data science, machine learning, and data management projects.
So could you tell us tell us a little bit about your current role, like what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, no, great question. So I would say on the day-to-day basis, to be honest, there's a lot of time which goes in the meetings and the emails, but I have a large team who does a lot of great work, and in various meetings, I'm just having them present different projects which they're working on and give them some suggestions on different ways they could tackle the problem. Sometimes I'm looking at different insights they are finding, and so that we can connect those insights to the specific business questions we have. Some other meetings are around just meeting the team one on one and making sure they are all doing well and how their respective teams are doing. So that's pretty much is the day to day work.
So you work in data science, right? So what kind of things does Poshmark use data for? Like what projects have you worked on or do you know of?
Yeah, no. So I mean, I know all of them because it's a
Yeah.
centralized data team. So my team is divided among different verticals, and each vertical focuses on a specific business area. So if you think of a company like Poshmark, which is a marketplace, the key vertical functions at Poshmark are there's a product team, which of course I'm sure you're very familiar with that whole part of the world because your mom is in that area. So product team is the one who is building the product. Then we have a growth and a marketing team, which is actually doing the user acquisition and bringing them on board and then developing them over time from like as they go through the journey at Poshmark. And that team also focuses on the communications like the push and email, etc. Then we have an operations team, marketplace operations, which focuses on all the buyer seller experience from the commerce side perspective, which means when you buy something, did your transaction go smooth? Did you receive the item as it was promised? Did any fraud happen in between? So that team focuses on that area. We call it marketplace operations. And then there is a community service team, which is the team which is the customer facing if someone didn't receive the package or they can't figure out how to change the password. So they're reaching out the customer service team. And then there is the finance and accounting team, which of course just focuses on the different financial statements and the strategic growth opportunities and the accounting. And then last but not the least is our markets team, which is the merchandising, the sellers, and they are focusing on the next generation of the products, etc. So my team works on the initiatives across all of these spectrums. So just to pick a few. On the product side, let's say we are going through some changes in like how the search should work. So this team, let's say we are running two algorithms. This team will be doing a lot of A/B testing to figure out which algorithm is working better and why. Because why is very important because that's how you work on the next iteration of that feature. On the marketplace operation side, we are working on building the fraud models or figuring out when somebody posts a Louis Vuitton handbag, is it a replica or is it an original? So again, the data gets used in all the areas. Similarly, on the sellers team, the team focuses on figuring out uh, are all the sellers being successful and what are the signals we can find so that the new sellers who are joining, they can be onboarded on a successful journey. So I can go on and on. There are like a lot of initiatives happening in all the verticals, and Poshmark is a very data-driven company.
Mhm.
So there is no decision where data doesn't get looked at or gets used in making decisions.
So data is used to make decisions basically
Yep.
about bigger things that happen in the company.
Everything,
That's
yeah,
cool.
bigger thing is small things, yes.
Poshmark started out relatively small when you first joined, I think, and it's
Mhm.
grown so much. What has that been like?
It has been a amazing journey. So this was my first startup experience. I had been generally in the mid-sized big public companies. When I joined Poshmark, we were like 35 or 40 people, Series B company, and now, of course, it's a pretty large. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 500 plus people, pretty large company. And so it has been exciting because when you do all of these, like the great work, of course, you are doing it to grow. So it has been satisfying to see us going on that growth journey. And but on the other hand, sometimes, like, the all of us who were there in the beginning, we realized that we didn't understand how the time just passed by, right? Because for us it's just the next day and the next month, and like it's suddenly like it's so big. And a lot of time we get this vibe from like how big we have become more when we are talking to people outside the company. uh, from the data perspective, it has been a very, I would say, same like the satisfactory, amazing journey.
Yeah.
Because even when we started with a small, like 35 people, where on the data team it was me and just a data engineer, we still started with a vision, right? That what we will be doing 5 years down the line and 10 years down the line, and how data will be driving decisions. And we backed from that to how we should be building the different pieces of the data function or data infrastructure, or the data science, like what tools, etc. So I always take the example of like building the Legos, right? You're going to build these big things, but you have to make sure you're putting the right pieces at the right place. Because if you make a mistake even at like the first step, you are not going to be able to finish the thing the right way. So that's the approach we took, that we knew where we are headed, but then we built it more realistically as the using the small company resources.
Okay, so how exactly did you get into data science? Like starting from like what degrees you took and all that?
Yep. So it's again, my path was one that is not a required path to become the
Yeah.
data scientist. For me, it started with, I was just passionate about math, like in my elementary school and middle school, and just grew up in India. So when you study math, you go to engineering school. That's how it was in those days. Went to engineering school and studied the statistics there, which is in India at that time, there were not as many jobs in the private sector for sure, that in if you study statistics. So I came to US to do a PhD, and I was like, I will get a PhD and then figure out what I want to do. But in few months in my PhD program, I through someone I learned about this job, which actually seemed pretty interesting, which was at a company named FICO, which is known for its FICO score. So I took a year break from PhD, and I thought, hey, let me go and see how a data job looks like, because I had not done a data job before that. And then I just never went back to school. It was, I just enjoyed, because I wasn't getting PhD. I was getting PhD because I wanted to do something more interesting and more deeper. And in this company, I got to do a lot of amazing work. So the data science career happened because I think I was just coming from the data background, and I really enjoyed working on the data projects. I was a software engineer for a year after I graduated from the engineering school, but what I realized very quickly was that I'm not a software engineer at my heart. I really like to work with the data and the statistics and the building the models, etc. And I basically changed the country, and where I found the jobs where you could use those skills, and the rest is kind of the history. And I
Yeah.
still enjoy it, which is why I'm still doing it. I mean, it's different industries. So I have gone from the financial services to advertising to now the social commerce, but the fundamentals of what you need to use do not change. It still is the same fundamentals you learn in some ways in school and the first few years of your job.
Okay. This one's a bit trickier. Who inspires you? Like they can be like a normal person or someone that everyone knows. But yeah.
Um, so I have been asked this question before, and I
Mhm.
always struggle to find one name because I think
Yeah.
I find inspiration in more day-to-day common people as opposed to this one person. What in general, but the theme which inspires me is the people who are making progress through despite all the difficulties and the roadblocks. And it could be the small things, like including my 3-year-old in some tricky way figuring out like how can she reach to the top shelf. Like it's amazing, right? The strategy and the thinking you have to do to a lot of people who are just fighting against the odds to do the big things. So I find more inspiration in the just observing the day-to-day things people do as opposed to but there are a lot of big names and which who are of course inspiring. So that's why we go and we
Yeah.
read about them. But I think even when I'm reading those stories, I'm generally more gravitated towards that. How did you fight through all the roadblocks and still made it where you are?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm also interested in data science, but I'm not really sure where to start, and I know there's lots of people like me. So what advice would you give to high school students who are interested in data science but don't really know much about it?
Yeah, I would say if I think of my high school, just stay with your math. Actually, I would say two things. To be a good data scientist, the two skills which are equally important. One is, of course, the math skills, right? Whether and to be honest, for math, it's not that you have to take all that. Like we have hired people who have studied very different things, but at some point of time they got really interested and they learned those skills. But one way or the other, you do need those technical skills.
Hmm.
And I think if you have taken those technical courses in your high school and the college, pre-college, that makes it easier. You don't have to learn those things later, right? Because you're just
Yeah.
learning it. The other side, which I think is as important, is this business perspective and the communication skills. Because if you think of it, at the end, what you're trying to do through the data is trying to influence some decisions, and you can't influence the decisions if you cannot convert what you solve through the data, how it solves a business problem. So that's why that business perspective matters. And the communication matters because even if you tied it to a business outcome, you still have to communicate it to someone to believe in your idea and make that decision. So I would say the three skills are equally important. And at high school and the pre-college level, I would say uh, if you have interest, then the technical skills focused courses will only help in taking it there. But as I said, they're not requirement. I have people in the team who have done totally different things in the pre-college, and at some point in time they just decided they were interested in data science. But you do have to learn those things. Like you can't build a model without knowing some basic
Yeah.
statistics and the coding, etc.
Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here with me. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Of course,
Yeah.
no, thank you, Malaika, reaching out. I'm so proud of you. Keep
Thank
what
you.
you're doing.
Yeah.